The lady from New Mexico, Ms. Stansbury.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, Madam Ranking Member. Thank you for all of you for traveling out here today. I've enjoyed listening to you today. I'm Melanie Stansbury, and I'm deeply proud to represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District, which is right in the heart of central New Mexico and includes 10 rural counties. And so I know very well all of the issues that you all are here to talk about today, and I really thank all 4 of our witnesses here today. And I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Clark. We have a broken bureaucracy. And there's certainly no easy solutions. And Mr. Neiman, we absolutely need to be supporting our local timber sawmills. They're a critical part of the West, and especially also of forest stewardship. And I think especially family-run businesses are particularly important. And I also agree, Mr. Canterbury, that grazing is an important part of the West and our food system, and also increasingly for forest management. Having our livestock not only grazing to make food, but also helping with forest stewardship is also becoming an increasingly important tool. And Dr. Gibbs, I appreciate your testimony today, and I'm going to ask a question here in a moment. And I want to just say I'm excited to serve on this committee. My background is as a water resources professional. I rarely get to say that these days, but I work for 20 plus years in the field of water resources planning and drought management, and obviously the intersection with land stewardship. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to serve on this committee. But I am concerned about what we've seen over the last 3 weeks in terms of what the administration has been putting forward in terms of policies. We saw a whole slew of executive orders on the first day of this administration, essentially undoing much of what the previous administration had done to protect private and sensitive lands, especially lands that are important for conservation reasons, for climate resilience, for wildlife habitat, for endangered species. There were areas that were removed from drilling in the outer continental shelf because they were considered unsuitable for various reasons. Areas in Alaska that have been removed for decades that, executive orders rolled back the protections for. And just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a slew of executive orders at the Department of Interior that are targeting DEI programs, that are targeting energy and mining, the outer continental shelf in Alaska. And we're also hearing that the Department of the Interior is reviewing the protection for national monuments. And I think all of these actions by the administration need to be discussed, because when you take them in the entirety of what they add up to, it's not just the rollback of the work that the last administration did. It's really the opening of massive amounts of public lands, waters, and mineral resources across the West to multinational corporations. And for what purpose? In the case of New Mexico, they're talking about taking away protections for Chaco Canyon. This is one of the most sacred places on the face of the planet for our Pueblo and Dene people. And they want to actually open up the greater Chaco Canyon area for oil and gas drilling so that some oil and gas companies can make a few $1 million off of it and ruin it for all of eternity. They're talking about the same. They're talking about opening, a vast mining operation at Oak Flat in Arizona, which is the sacred site of the Apache people for thousands of years. There are reasons why we protected these places. It's not an ideological affinity for some, technical term around multiple use. It's because they're sacred, because they have cultural importance. And the funding freezes are going to have real impacts for our communities. All of you have talked about land and water impacts. And Dr. Gibbs, I know you've already answered this, but, taking away and freezing all of this funding, millions of dollars to states, tribes, and local governments that could help with land stewardship, what kind of impact is that going to have on our communities?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It could have devastating impacts on just let's think about wildfire issues. Devastating impacts on protecting life, property, and critical infrastructure. From your experience being a water leader, impacts just on wildfires alone if we don't have the resources and staff capacity to get out there to do fire mitigation work, to put together fire breaks, to work with our local communities to make sure we're doing work at the right pace, right location, right scale, could have dramatic impacts, not only on people in my community, but I know you know Colorado River issues well too, of course, but could have devastating impacts on 40 million people that depend on Colorado River water, for example. And so the relationship we have with our federal partners, you know, whether it's dealing with remediation of orphan wells or old abandoned mines, water quality and quantity, these are life and death issues for people. It's not just something that should be wrapped up into politics at all. This is something that, being the head of the Department of Natural Resources, I think of often. You know, I stay up at night thinking about not if but when we have our next mega fire, and thinking about all the different partners that are involved with fighting that fire and so forth. Whether it's the BLM or the U.S. Forest Service, they're my brothers and sisters as we work to problem solve with this. And so it is scary to think about what potential impacts we could have. And we're just really monitoring it closely because we're just not sure right now what's in versus out, what's considered Green New Deal or what's not, you know. And for us, it's common sense partnership at the end of the day that we need.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I hope that these funding freezes, and obviously the courts are weighing in right now, but I think, you know, as was noted, this is life or death, especially in our fire-prone communities. And I noted, Dr. Gibbs, you're also a firefighter. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Does the gentlelady yield? Okay, the gentlelady yields. I now recognize